This group is a group put together by a real estate analyst called Mike DelPrete, and he has an event that's called the Real Estate Innovation Hub. He said, hey, I want to get people that like real estate technology, real estate innovation. I want to get them into a room in person who wants to come. The attendees are really, really hand-selected. People from real estate technology companies, real estate startups, brokerage owners, executives from the top portals, like vice president level. My secondary goal was getting intel, getting information on what people are doing with voice AI. I was able to ask million-dollar producers what they're doing in that space, and that was awesome. None of the answers were... All right, am I live? Okay, it's working. Are we live? Okay, we're live on Facebook, and I'm also, for the first time, trying this on LinkedIn. See if we can go live on LinkedIn, just for fun. Let's see. Okay, cool. I think this is real. Okay, cool. So I'm actually live on both Facebook and LinkedIn. I hadn't done that before. So a new thing for me, guys. Bear with me. A little bit of technical difficulty. So I'm going live today. I didn't make a big announcement because I wasn't sure I was going to be able to do it today, but I'm squeezing it in. I had a really busy day today, but I wanted to make time to tell you guys about a really cool event that I attended last week. Okay, this was last week. This event was in Boulder, Colorado. Okay, Boulder is like a suburb, like a small town outside of Denver, Colorado. And it actually snowed one of the days I was there, which I thought was pretty cool. Because I'm coming from central Mexico, where the climate is like 75 degrees and at the middle of the day. So a little bit of a change to 30 degrees, 20 degrees, right? So crazy. Anyways, this group is a group put together by a real estate analyst called Mike DelPrete. Okay, Mike DelPrete. If you might not be familiar with him, but if you ever got into the big iBuyer craze of 2020, 2021, right? When iBuyers kind of just burst onto the scene and we're competing with real estate agents and we're doing bidding wars, he was one of the analysts that was telling that story, from a, kind of an unbiased perspective, right? Because Zillow was one of the ones doing this, and Open Door and Redfin, and there was a lot of companies jumping in the iBuyer, train, and it seemed unstoppable, right? And Mike was one of the guys that took a more nuanced approach to iBuying and just called out like the enormous losses these companies were taking, right? And the companies would justify it. We're losing money now, but we're going to be grabbing market share. It costs money to start. It's a very capital intensive business. We're going to figure this out. We'll figure out the unit economics. We'll figure out profitability later, right? And some of these companies raised billions of dollars, right, doing that, right? And Zillow and Redfin spent hundreds of millions, if not billions, right, on this. And the outcome was disastrous, right? They all ended up crashing out. Open Door is a shell of its former self. They've switched CEOs at least once or twice. Zillow changed CEOs, I think, in large part because of this fiasco. So it was a big story. And one of the people telling it with a lot of detail was Mike DelPrete, right? He published a white paper, a report on it. He spoke at Inman about it, and I started following him because of that. I really like his analysis, and it was unbiased. Guys, if you are looking at news about the real estate industry, you've got to always be careful about who you're listening to, right? Because a lot of the analysis comes from Zillow, comes from Redfin, comes from NAR, comes from a vendor with an agenda, right? Again, I'm not making any accusation, but if I see a paper coming from a vendor, I go, well, there's an inherent bias in that paper, right? To favor the vendor, okay? The company, the brokerage. I'm always concerned about those things. Mike has the unique thing where he's kind of, an independent analyst, right? The Zillow, Redfin, NAR don't pay him to do this, to do this research. They don't pay him to do it. He publishes it. He does talks, right? He gets hired to do public speaking, and he has an event, right? That's called the Real Estate Innovation Hub. He started this last year, and he did it with a lot of his fans, people that were following him, that followed his content, his reports, and seeing a lot of his talks at Inman, at other venues, other conferences, a bunch of different ones. And he said, hey, I want to get people that like real estate technology, real estate innovation, right? I want to get them into a room in person This is after COVID, after years of the lockdowns and stuff. In-person event in Boulder, Colorado. Who wants to come, right? Oh, and there's also a podcast. So Mike is, publishes his research. So a lot of CEOs go to visit him in Boulder and be on his podcast and speak to his class. He's also a professor at the University of Colorado, right? And he teaches a class on real estate technology, which is wild, okay? And he's also worked in the startup world. He sold a company in real estate tech, and he's worked for other companies as a consultant, as a vice president, in different real estate portals, okay? And he's published a lot of research on real estate portals, the portal wars. He's focused a lot on brokerages, the different emerging brokerage models in the US and Australia and the UK, a lot of the English speaking world, and a lot of countries in Europe as well. And most recently, he's done a lot of research on private exclusives. And I've really liked his research on that because, like I said, it's taken all the emotion and the bias out of it. And he's tried to independently analyze that business, right? And what Compass is doing and what the market is doing, how the market's reacting, Zillow's reaction to that, all those things. So great one. So he put together this event, in-person event in Boulder, right? Where all these CEOs from Redfin, Zillow, Compass, all these different leaders go and talk to him in that place. And they're, hey, well, now I want the regular people to come, leaders and the other leaders in the industry to come to Boulder and just talk about really cool trends and how the industry is doing and what's working, what's not working, right? If that sounds like it's interesting, sign up. And, I found out about the event this year. It's been going on since last year, but I decided to sign up this year. I go, you know what? This seems like a really cool event. A lot of people that I knew in the industry were attending. I'm like, hey, I should check this out, right? And I took the plunge, earlier this year. I signed up like in May or April. And they signed me up for an in-person event in December. So it was packed, right? Like this event, they only let 100 people in to the program, and people go to Boulder in groups of 10 to 15 people attend these sessions. They're 2-day sessions. You're in a conference room and you're just talking the whole time, which is pretty wild. And I've been to, like, folks, I've talked about events here before. I've been to a lot of real estate events. I've been to Inman and Keller Williams and 5,000 person conferences and 14,000 person conferences. And some of those are great when you're early in your career, and they were awesome. I love them. As I've progressed in my career, first as a real estate agent, now as a vendor, as the CEO of Power ISA, my expectations have changed a lot, right? If I go to an event, I don't want to go to a massive 14,000 person event where it's mostly going to be motivational. Okay, not that that's not a great event. I mean, I love those events when I was in the business, right? In production, they were great, very energizing. As a CEO, it's not that energizing anymore, right? I have different problems to solve. I want to learn different things. And a lot of the information was just kind of the lowest common denominator for everybody. Hey, call your database. Hey, lead generate. Hey, go to open houses. Like that kind of stuff was there. And don't get me wrong, that is useful for 99% of agents. That's useful, okay? But not everybody. All right. So I'm looking for different kind of events now. I've talked about the events I've been to with Alex Hormozy, business owner networking events. I prefer going to smaller, more intimate, more catered events now. Okay, and if you're looking for an experience like that, I really recommend going to an event like this, where it's a small event and the attendees are really, really hand selected. Okay, it's people from real estate technology companies, real estate startups. You've got brokerage owners. You've got executives from the top portals, Realtor.com, Zillow. I don't know if Homestar or CoStar go, but those kinds of people show up, like vice president level people, right? Go to these events. And owners of brokerages that have 60 agents, 600 agents, or in the case of like other ones, like hundreds or thousands of agents, right? They attend these sessions, and it's pretty wild. We had people from in my group, my cohort, let's call it that. We had people from a company called like Thumbtack, a startup. It's like a syndication classified startup. We had people from like a all-in-one real estate a tech platform. We had people from a lot of brokerage owners. It's like 10-person brokerage, 50, 60, 600, and over 1,000 agents. Okay. We had a team leader Like, I think I can say this publicly, mega agent Gary Ashton was there. Okay. And he runs a team of 200 agents out of Nashville, Tennessee. I think one of the largest teams in the whole country, right? And I think the largest team for Remax in the whole world, something like that. Like just a really big producer, not a brokerage owner, but he manages more agents than a lot of brokerages do, right? Massive, a great guy, massive producer. Okay. We had people like software people, and we had people from realtor.com, Move Inc., realtor.com. Super interesting. Like a data scientist from there, a vice president from there, like a business development guy. It was fascinating. We had people from Europe, right? A VP of product from a European portal, real estate portal, right? Just like Zillow, just like Realtor.com, but in another country. And they were like more like Craigslist, more so than a real estate portal. But they have a real estate division, like a real estate part of the company. So, and he had a lot of experience, like in real estate in Canada and the US and now in Europe. And it was wild. So and then you had me, Gus, right? Gustavo Munoz Castro from Power ISA. So I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I felt like the smallest person in that room. It was very intimidating at first. I saw the list of people that were attending, like, oh my God, right? Like, I'm gonna be like a fish out of water in there. I don't know what I'm gonna say. I'm gonna sound dumb. When they ask me what I do, they're like, oh man, this guy. And nothing could be further from the truth. So huge kudos to the team that put this together. It's Mike DelPrete and his partner in this project, who's the organizer, like the operational person, Tara Leonetti. They're just amazing, right? They did a great job, and they were very thoughtful in selecting the people for the event, right? Because the event, it's 2 days in a conference room, okay, which can sound like crazy, like very boring, and it's not. Okay, the event is structured in such a way that there are some talks, some formal discussion groups, and people talk about different topics, but it's also structured that give you a lot of one-on-one and group conversation time. Like, hey, we have 2-hour break. 2-hour break. You guys can break off into different groups and talk about subjects. There's like a board where you can go in there and ask about a topic you're passionate about, that you're interested in. Okay, like for me, it was AI. I'll talk about my experience in a second, like my mission in the event. But you could post a little post-it note, and people could sign up on that topic, and you would use these really long breaks to talk to them. Grab a coffee. There was like food and drinks there, like all day, and you grab a coffee and have a conversation. And that was amazing, right? Because one of the best things about being in person at these kinds of events is a networking opportunity. The problem with big, massive conferences and networking, in my experience, is that it can be very random. You can only network with the people that are like physically around you, and you might have some friends you're messaging, but you already knew them, right? If you're texting someone to go meet up and network at a conference, you already have a connection to them. This could have been a Zoom call, right? People you already know. People you don't know. It helps. I think this event was structured to talk to people we normally would never be connected to. Right? It's a big difference. So there were owners of different, websites and brokerages there that I would have never spoken to otherwise, right? So like Gary was a great guy, for Ash, and we made some reconnections there, right? So it was amazing, and I wouldn't have spoken to him if it weren't for that event. I'm 100% sure of it, right? Like it was a great opportunity. So we also had a very long lunches and dinners, both days, like a 1 or 2 hour lunch, and then like a 2 or 3 hour dinner at the end, and it was just talking. And we would talk business, we would talk real estate, we would talk gossip from the industry, and we talk about our personal lives. Like, the World Cup is coming to the US, Mexico, and Canada. There were some Canadians there. I'm from Mexico. The US people, a lot of like soccer. We're just talking about soccer stuff, right? How excited we were about, the World Cup coming next year, right? It was awesome. So, talking about our kids, stuff with the countries that because a lot of us have lived outside our country that we were born in, right? A lot of people had that same experience. They were born in a country, maybe went to school in another country, now working in a third country, right? So we shared some of those experiences. It was a great group of people, and a lot of really insightful conversation happened. And there was a lot of opportunities to have those kind of one-off conversations. They could veer off into other topics, but they were awesome. And that is really hard to do in some of these other events, right? So I love that. So me specifically, Gus, when I went to this event, I kind of went with like two goals in mind. Number one was just connecting with other people in the industry at a high level. Okay. I wanted to connect with vice president, director, brokerage owners, like have that network and just talk to them and ask them like what are they doing with ISA? What are they doing with AI? Because my secondary goal was like getting intelligence, getting intel, getting information on what people are doing with voice AI, AI voice. How is it actually moving the needle? What's actually working out there? Did it have any specific technologies they're deploying that I can use? Because we've tried to deploy a voice with Power ISA, and the results were very mixed. Like not a home run. I call it that. It's not a home run yet. So I went out there with that specific question, and I was able to ask $1 million producers, people that run organizations with hundreds of agents, what they're doing in that space, and that was awesome, right? That was really, really awesome. And I thought that was very unique. And I wouldn't have gotten a chance to ask those questions and I would have had a chance to get the quality of answer I did, right? So it was a really, really great one. So and that was a recurring theme. What are people doing with AI to move the needle? And how are they deploying AI voice? And what are they doing with their calling teams? So that was fascinating. So I'm gonna go down my list of like big takeaways, big insights. I'm like 20 minutes into this talk. I'm barely getting to the to the topic, but here we are, guys. Hopefully you're strapped in for the ride. Okay. So number one, there was this whole discussion, a long discussion about private exclusives. Okay. So, one of the things I liked about this event, like I said, is that the people are so well selected that we're able to have a discussion about private exclusives without name calling, without like crazy accusations, like none of that. Okay. And there were people in that room with a vested interest in a particular outcome, right? Because they're with a certain portal or they're with a certain brokerage. They were in the room, but we really kept it civil and just professional, right? Which is impossible to do online. It just gets too heated. There's too much passion. It's too easy to be a keyboard warrior. And it's hard to have a private exclusive conversation. So we talked about it. And the general, the data that Mike's done a lot of research on this topic, a lot. And he showed once the Zillow ban on Compass listings, on private exclusive listings went into effect, it has had almost no change in the amount of private exclusives that a company like Compass has, which was surprising for me. I thought that once the Zillow ban went into effect, in the summer, that private exclusive would drop like a rock. Like, who's going to risk that, right? Why do it? And the reality is, it hasn't had almost any effect. There's more private exclusive listings from Compass now than before the ban, which is crazy to me. And this is also a researched piece of research. How many listings have been banned by Zillow since I think it was June 1st or July 1st that the ban went into effect? To give you some context, I think Compass has at the time had like 8,000, 9,000 private exclusive listings on their website at that time. How many do you think have been banned so far? And the answer was 48. Okay. The answer was 48 listings have been banned on Zillow because they were, advertised as a private exclusive on another website. And that number is like 2 orders of magnitude smaller than I thought it would be, right? So Zillow is holding off on this ban. This ban, the Zillow ban right now, has been more of a threat than anything else. Not to say they won't change that, but I think they're holding off enforcement for now, probably because of the litigation, probably because of what can happen. I'm not sure, but they've really been, slow to move the ban hammer on listings, right? So I thought that was I didn't know that. That was very interesting, right? And I think in general, there were 2 tracks of discussion here on this one, right? And which makes sense because I'm of 2 minds on this topic. I'm not religious about it, but I'm of 2 minds. One is, if I think about the real estate agent and the real estate brokerage, right? Almost nothing I can think of will give more value and more control and more power to the real estate agent and the brokerage than private exclusives. Like, it's the ultimate thing, right? Like, this is why the MLS is so powerful in the US, because it controls all the inventory all the time. Listing distribution is an afterthought in the US. No one cares about it because listings are ubiquitous. They're everywhere instantly. Everyone's got them, right? We don't even give a second thought to that. That is different than every other country in the world. The US is unique in that sense, okay? US is unique. And, sometimes I don't think we know how good we have it, but, that is wild. And that's one thing, right? So if we go if we go into a model that promotes private exclusives, the people that will benefit the most are going to be real estate agents, honestly, right? Because Compass is doing it now, but if it works and it gives, everyone's going to do it, right? Every brokerage will have their private exclusives, and agents and consumers will have to go and look everywhere if they want to find all of the inventory. And a company like Zillow, like Realtor.com, if that happens, they'll lose power. They'll lose, value, I think, right? Like it'll break like the stranglehold they have, and so will the MLSs. The stranglehold they have on the data, right? That'll just be disrupted 100%. Could be a major change, and I think it'll make the agents more powerful and the brokerages especially more powerful, right? Because they control the inventory now. Like, this is my data, not everybody else's. This is my stuff. You want to look at it? Come to me. Okay, great. That's an agent's dream. And why do I know that? Because when I was an active agent, I would run exclusive offers all the time, guys. I would run an off-market property list as an ad, right? I had an off-market property list. And because if you had a lot of buyers looking for properties, off-market property list is a great offer to have, right? I would call for sale by owners and expired. I'd build an off-market property list. Great. But if we were flipped and we had more sellers than we had buyers, what was valuable then? My exclusive buyer list, right? I have a list of buyers that no one else has. I've got buyers. If you want buyers, talk to me, right? So when listings are scarce, you've got inventory, off-market properties, and when buyers are scarce, you have buyers, right? So I know how powerful those offers can be. They're very powerful, okay? And that's why private exclusives can be so powerful. On the other hand, taking off my real estate agent hat and putting on my consumer hat, my buyer and seller hat, it's not a great experience, quite frankly. Just being honest with you guys. This is how real estate is done in every country in the world except the US and Canada. Every other country has private exclusives, exclusive inventory. It's fractured, right? Every website, every company, every agent has their own listings. They don't have buyer agency in these other countries either, okay? So the listing agent has everything. They double in all the deals. And they've got their exclusive inventory they want to advertise. And if they want to advertise on that site, they'll pay that site to put their listing. And on that other site, they pay per site, right? And so I don't think that's a great experience from the real estate agent perspective. But from the consumer's perspective, it's awful, because if they want to find all the inventory, all the listings for sale, there's no one place that has that. And we take that for granted in the US. If you want to find all the listings for sale, you got to look in this website, and then this website, and then in that website, and then this website all the time to see what's going on. Where are the homes, right? Where are they popping up? That's crazy. And then not only that, but in places like Europe and Australia, you have to pay. So listen to this. This is a real feature. You can buy a premium subscription so that you get listing alerts before everybody else. Okay? You pay money every month, so that when you're looking for a home or even for a lease, like a rental, you're going to be notified before everybody else, before the listing goes live. You have like a pre-listing, tier, right? That's crazy, right? And again, there's two sides to the discussion. You can argue that this gives the consumer more options, that this gives companies room to innovate and come up with new services and products and solutions. That's true. I just don't think it's a great experience as a consumer. And I know that because every other country on the planet wishes they had a system like the US and Canada, where distribution is ubiquitous and it's instantaneous and it's almost, universal. Okay. I think that system's worth preserving. That's all I'm going to say about that. And I argued that in the table, but there was some good comebacks and different points of view on that. Okay. So it was a very interesting discussion. And I'll talk more about the lawsuit in a second, but that's a big part of it. I'll segue into that. So one of the things that Mike DelPrete did was he was able to sit in the first public hearing of the Zillow Compass lawsuit. So when Zillow instituted the Zillow ban on exclusive listings, Compass sued them and said, hey, you can't use that monopoly power to affect our sellers. This is illegal. Okay. You can't do that. Right. So there's this whole, legal process going on. And Mike was in the room when they, cross-examined Zillow executives. They presented all this evidence publicly, and it was just fascinating. Okay, because it was fascinating because like how bad it made Zillow look. That's basically it, right? Like a lot of the product people in Zillow, like they use some language I'm sure they regret on how they were describing, agents behaving badly and doing, exclusive listings. They used, in my opinion, very poor choice of words in a lot of these materials. And Compass was just having a field day with that, right? So as they should. It's all fair in love and war, right? So you got a front row seat to that hearing, and the biggest takeaway. I mean, and Mike has published a lot of a few papers on this already on that lawsuit and that hearing. But my biggest takeaway was just how big of a distraction this is for Zillow, because they don't just have one lawsuit they have to deal with. I think they have 6 lawsuits that they're currently dealing with. A class action lawsuit related to the Zillow home loans product and Flex, this Compass and Zillow ban issue, and then a bunch of other lawsuits. I don't even know what the other ones are, right? But those are the big ones. Class action lawsuit around Zillow, how they're pushing Zillow loans, which could even be like a criminal violations there. Could be criminal penalties. Like people could go to jail because of the way Zillow was pushing Zillow home loans with Flex, right? That's a whole other issue. But this one is big too, right? It's going to be a major issue for Zillow. And when executives from the company have to go testify, because they're the decision makers, like they are the ones that set the policy for the company, right? When they have to go testify, they get deposed for hours and hours in an office somewhere months before. Then they have to prepare to testify at these hearings, and the preparation takes days and days and hours and hours and hours. And then they travel, in this case was New York City to do the trial, not the trial, but the hearing and testify and get cross-examined. And it's all public. There's a lot of discovery. They have to turn over all these emails and text messages, and it all becomes public. It's part of a lawsuit, right? All becomes public and gets exposed by both sides. So it's a huge distraction for Zillow. Is it going to cause some major changes? It has the potential to, right? Zillow is being attacked from all sides, it seems like right now, right? Are they going to be able to get through it? Are they going to be unscathed, get out of it unscathed? Is it going to be could it be the potential to shift things in the marketplace, in the portal wars in the US? Maybe, right? It definitely has the potential to. So I thought that was very interesting. We might see some major changes in the portal wars in 2026. So we'll see. Next one, big point of discussion was AI. Like almost, I think of the 12, 15 people that were there, I think 10 of them had questions and they had discussions about AI, right? And this is where I spent most of the time talking to people, right? And I just found people doing the craziest things. So the general consensus in the room, again, what I liked about the discussions is that we're mostly focused on current results, okay? Not speculation about what's going to happen in the future, which is a very hard discussion to have, right? Because I get into this discussion a lot online because I have a provocative statement, purposely provocative, that I put out there. I'm challenging people. I go, if you think that AI is going to replace real estate agents, you either don't work that much with AI or you don't think much about real estate agents, right? Because I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think, at least not anytime soon, like in the next 5 years. I don't think it's going to happen at all, right? And that always starts conversations with people. The problem with those conversations that I've seen is that people are not basing them on actual results right now. They're saying, oh, this is going to happen in the future. You can see it. It's coming. Like, why? I asked them why. Because of all it can do right now. And I go, I know what it can do right now. And it's not that impressive, right? And I don't think it replaces a real estate agent at all, okay? Because I think AI is amazing at automating tasks, saving you tons of time, giving you really valuable information at your fingertips, right? but someone's got to request that information. I think that person is a real estate agent. I think the real estate agent is the orchestrator of this whole experience. And I don't think that's gonna be really hard to change. And people will debate me on that at morning, noon, and night, right? But in this setting, in the hub, the real estate innovation hub, we talked about it, and these are massive teams. 600 agent teams, 200 agent teams, 1,000-person companies. And when you ask them what they were using AI for to move the needle, none of the answers were setting appointments, creating ads, generating leads. None of the answers were that, which I thought was really interesting. Because in my space, in my neck of the woods, all you hear about with AI is lead generation, marketing. It's gonna be sales, marketing, lead generation. It's all gonna be taken over by AI. In fact, it's already taken over by AI. Don't get left behind, right? There's this huge fear of missing out, FOMO. Don't get left behind by the AI marketing and sales and lead gen. And when you look under the hood from these enormous organizations that have whole teams dedicated to AI and IT and technology, that is not the most valuable application of AI at all. By far, it's not, right? So that was surprising for me. Okay, that was surprising for me. And the second thing that people brought up was, okay, well then where is AI moving the needle if it's not sales, marketing, and lead generation? And they all said it was in operations. Okay, that it has the potential for a 5x, 10x savings on time, people, costs when it comes to operations. I'll give you an example. We were talking about a case study of a company, a brokerage, that had, I'm gonna mess up the numbers here, but the broad number is going to be true. They were managing, I think it was, like, I don't know, 100 new transactions every single week, right? 100 new transactions every single week. Big brokerage. And they had a transaction management team of 8 people. 8 people, okay? And they had grown over the years. They had grown the brokerage had grown, and now they weren't handling 100 transactions every single week active. They were not doing 1,000 active. They were doing, I think it was 5,000 active at any given week, right? 5,000 active transactions they were managing at any given time. 5,000 active. But the transaction management team was still 8 people. Only 8 people. And they developed a solution to manage transactions using AI, right? They said, thanks to AI, we're able to manage, I think it was 50x the work with the same amount of people behind it. People that are in a supervisory role, that are in a secondary, third level support role, that are helping make sure nothing goes wrong. But they went from managing 100 active transactions to 5,000 active transactions at any given time with the same team. And that was amazing. That was like mind-blowing for me. Like, holy cow. Like, that's a real number, guys. 50x productivity gain. I hadn't seen an actual case study where that was true, actual business results. And that was very impressive. Okay. We had another person talk about a case study, internal case study for them. And they ran a call center, right? Like, it's one of the big portals. They have they have hundreds, if not, I think they have hundreds of people on the phone, on their own sales team, their lead follow-up team, all the different teams. And they had the quality assurance role, QA, right? Every call center has this, some version of quality assurance QA. We have a function around that. But for us, AI, we no longer have a staff member doing it, right? AI has helped us distribute it among other roles. We used to have like a 3 or 4 person dedicated QA team, because our ISAs make thousands of calls a day. Okay. So we had a dedicated QA team. We don't have that anymore, right? And AI is not the only reason, but it is one of the big reasons we haven't had to hire a new team now. AI can analyze calls and can help us give feedback to the agents. Well, this, I was actually really impressed with them and with my team, because this massive corporation did the same thing. They went from having, I think it was like 15, 20 dedicated quality assurance people to like completely changing their role. They didn't fire anybody, right? But they went from analyzing a small percentage of calls to analyzing massive amounts of calls and gaining really actionable insights so that the callers could get coached into being better callers. Okay. The AI would analyze the voice, would analyze the call, and help them coach the people to get better, right? Which is exactly what we're using it for. Okay. And it is scary good. It is great at analyzing calls and coming up with like thoughtful insights, okay, on how to get better on those calls. And again, all this, it's only as good as you prompt it, right? It's only going to be as good as your own instructions to it. And I think we're really good at analyzing calls. So we helped program a bot that is also really good at analyzing calls and actually gives these calls a score. We use a numeric score, right? And not only that, we've gone, ahead of that, and we create, voice AI bots. Okay, we create bots that are typical personas, avatars. The expired seller, the FISBO seller, the circle prospecting seller, right? Well, owner, circle prospecting owner, Facebook lead, inbound Facebook lead, and we can use these to train ISAs. They call the bot. It tries to get them through a dialogue. They got to use objection handlers. They got to listen to what they're saying. They got to show empathy. They got to have a really good tone, right? And the bot analyzes it, and it tells them, "Hey, you could have done this better. You could have done that better. You did a good job here. Didn't do such a good job here. And here's your score." Right? Crazy good. And we actually, funny story, we have competitions at the company. I've talked about this in the Innovation Hub, right? Hey, we have competitions every month where the ISAs compete, my staff members compete. In the staff member competition, I even called this bot. It was tough. I call the expired seller. I got a 60% on that call, a 60 out of 100, right? And the winner got like 80%. So I tell him I wasn't that bad. I hadn't called expired in a long time. So I'm not too, embarrassed by that result. But I thought it was awesome. A tremendous use of technology. And it was very reassuring to see other companies do something similar. Hey, that's awesome. This is a really good use case. It's a good use of resources. Okay. Another company, this is going to be wild, guys. Another company, the founder was there, and they said that they were having issues internally with the team. So he built an AI bot, like an AI tool, to analyze the written communication for the whole company, hundreds of thousands of messages, emails, direct messages, public forums, private forums, everything. And it helped them diagnose what the problem with the organization was, right? Let me say that again. One of the founders wasn't sure what was wrong with his company. There was a lot of things going wrong. He asked, basically, it's not exactly true, but he asked ChatGPT, here are all the messages from my company. What's wrong with the company? And the AI analyzed it and said that they had like a really toxic culture. People were backstabbing people, talking behind his back, and they were just like bad mouthing the owner. And people were slacking on work. They weren't doing the work, right? And they were just had found all these workarounds to all the measures that they had in the company. And the company is also fully remote. Okay. So remote work, tell me about it. Remote work lends itself for people to really just not pay attention and be disconnected if you're not careful. That's why at Power ISA, we take all these measures to avoid that because we know what the risks are. And but he didn't have any of that, right? So he had to ask ChatGPT to help him figure this out. And it said, yeah, all of this is going on. This is rampant. This is a cultural issue. This is really, really toxic behaviors happening. And what this company did, which I thought was very drastic, but it's the first example that I see that they fired, I think, half the team. 50% of the company got fired because of that, right? And that just blew me away. Like, holy cow. And what happened, right? What was the issue? And the most surprising part was that the company is more productive now with the 45% remaining of staff that were not part of the toxic problem than before, when they had almost like more than double the people. Like, it was almost like triple the people. Okay. It was crazy to hear that. As a real case study. So again, you could argue, it's the fault of the founder. They messed it up. They probably did, right? But AI help him fix the company, probably save the company, right? If things were that bad. Because they told me they were losing customers, all their metrics were down, their KPIs were not getting better, and they just couldn't understand why. And they didn't have all these measures to detect bad behavior. Well, the AI helped them, right? And now they have them for sure. But it's a very different group of people. So they lost almost 60% of the team, and they're more productive. They output more work. They output more work with almost a third of the people. It's crazy. I had never heard anything like that before. Um, it makes me think about what could happen in the future. I don't know, right? But the implications are wild, wild of what you can do, right? And that, again, a lot. There's a whole other can of worms in that kind of a project. There's privacy concerns. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know about that stuff, but that was a real case study, and I'd never heard anything like that, right? Amazing, amazing output. And then there was a lot of people working on different AI tools, internal dashboards, internal knowledge based tools. And a lot of these tools, this is a crazy part, they are made by non engineers, non software people, vibe coding, people that are very technical, like very, very tech savvy people, but they're not formal software developers, not engineers at all. They're creating these internal tools, coaching tools, dashboards, productivity trackers, all of these things, right? Really, really awesome to see all these different applications of AI. That's just wild that you can create and iterate on all these different solutions without being a coder, a software guy. So that's pretty well. So it inspired me to go ahead and I'm going to start building a vibe code and AI app, which is, funny for me because I actually come from a software development background. Like I've written code, I've written applications, right? This was, a really long time ago. So I should have an edge on some of these vibe coders. But it really inspired me to give it a shot and see what's possible with the technology. I'm definitely going to do that. That was awesome. All right. Other than AI voice, it was real estate portal power moves. Real estate portal power moves were really, really interesting. We talked about, the Zillow ban. We talked about like CoStar and Homes.com, Realtor.com, and their kind of the reactions to that. And then bringing it down to the numbers, the most interesting thing is with CoStar coming in with Homes.com, dropping $1 billion marketing campaign, making all this noise, has basically left things unchanged. Unchanged. Homes.com got a lot of visibility, a lot of traffic from those campaigns. But Zillow didn't lose any traffic. They didn't lose any traffic, which means probably people are now checking more websites than before when they're looking for a home. It's crazy. And one thing that Mike has talked about in his research is that real estate portals in the US, Australia, the UK, almost everywhere he's studied this. When you have a first mover advantage and like a dominant player, after like an initial phase of a lot of different competitors, once a dominant player emerges, it is really hard to move them out of the way, right? And he's seen this dynamic play out over and over and over again, where you've got these behemoth, Zillows of the world, right? And you've got these different competitors trying to jump at them and dislodge them, and it doesn't work. It hasn't worked so far, right? It hasn't really moved the needle. And in general, Mike had, I think, a little bit of a pessimistic view of technology and real estate, saying that in the US and Canada too, that the industry tends to move with a lot of inertia, right? It is very hard to change behaviors of consumers, of real estate agents, of technology because of the inertia in the industry. Like it generally does not adopt new technologies that well or that quickly. I think you can say that about a lot of industries, but real estate in particular, there have been a lot of attempts to disrupt and remove the real estate agent from the center of the transaction. And they quite frankly haven't worked, okay? Haven't really worked. So he talked a lot about that. And also, there's this whole concept of super apps, okay? Super apps, consumer-facing super apps. Zillow has been trying to build one for a very long time. Most recently, Redfin with Rocket Mortgage with their acquisition of Redfin, the RocketFin acquisition, they're trying to make a super app where a consumer can browse properties, apply for a mortgage, start their transaction, get title, get a deal on title, get a deal on home insurance, and save a lot of money if they use the Rocket Fin, super app. So that's an interesting one, right? Mike is very interested in the results. I'd be interested in the results too, because every time that's been attempted in the US, it hasn't worked. It hasn't moved the needle. It hasn't captured a ton of market share. It hasn't disrupted the industry, right? It hasn't removed real estate agents from being the center of the transaction. And that's a little bit of what they're trying to do here, right? So we'll see. But that's like a big thing. The Holy Grail, it's called the Holy Grail of real estate technology, prop tech, real estate tech, the consumer-facing super app. I would argue Zillow probably has the closest thing to that right now, but not nearly what people think they can be, right? So there's that. Okay. Next one. I think that's it, guys. I think those are the major topics that we had, the major discussions that we had. I thought it was really, really interesting. It's a great event, right? So if you want to attend the event, it's basically invite only. Okay. There's an open enrollment period. That period's over. But they have like 20 spots left. So if you're in my network, you're in my audience, and you want to attend this event, reach out to me. I don't make any money off of it. I don't get a referral fee or anything. The event costs, I'm pretty sure I can talk about this publicly. The event costs $5,000 to attend. You get access to the whole community for a year, and you're able to attend, I think, 2 events per year, right? So, and most events are, held in person in Boulder, Colorado. And they also have like regional events, regional get-togethers. They're doing a lot of new innovation for 2026. They're going to mix it up, add more events and more stuff, which I think is awesome. So I really recommend, if you guys are interested in connecting with people across the industry, if you're in real estate technology, if you're a vendor, if you work with real estate agents and sell stuff to real estate agents, this also might be a great opportunity for you. If you're a brokerage owner, an independent brokerage owner, I think it's a no-brainer to join a group like this, because a lot of them were independent, like small boutique brokerages were members of the hub. So you can send a lot to gain. Even today, Wednesday, I attended a virtual event from the hub. This was not an in-person event; it was a virtual event on creating company culture. That's not a tech topic, right? You can use a lot of technology for that. But we're talking about how to create company culture in a real estate team, in a real estate focused company, how to hire people for culture. Should you let go people because of culture fit? How do you incentivize people to promote the culture? How do you get feedback on the current culture from your team? Fascinating topic. Okay. And we had some really great people attend. And these are, again, like I said, executives, team leaders, brokerage owners that manage 60, 600,000 agents, right? Just commenting on the problems they face, which is really, really awesome. So very high quality conversation. If you really want to take your business to the next level, it's a great one, right? The topics that the hub is not particularly focused on, I will say this, they're not super focused on like sales and marketing tools and like scripting and lead conversion, lead generation. That's not a huge area of focus, right? So if you want to join to learn how to sell more houses, the networking and the conversations can be about that, right? But I found it to be more focused on industry trends, industry news, technology, emerging technology, operations, stuff like culture. Another event that's going to happen next. They always schedule events for next year, virtual events. They do like 1 or 2 a month. They're going to be talking about like an integrated vertical tech stack, like brokerages that want to do that. What are the pros? What are the cons? What are the challenges with that? Right? Every brokerage wants to do some version of that. And there'll be, events like that, right? So I think it's really, really interesting. It's a great organization, a great event. You guys, if you're interested in that kind of thing, I think it's a great option if you want to jump in there. So I'm going to look real quick to see if there's anything else. Did anything come in? No, I don't think we have any. Let's see. I'm looking at LinkedIn. How do I even look at this? Is this working? I think it's working. Okay, great. So I think it worked, guys. So, bravo. My first time streaming over to, LinkedIn. So I thought that was, it was risky. I wasn't sure it was going to work, and it worked great. Kudos over to LinkedIn. I think it's working all right. So they did a good job. And I think that's it, guys. All right. So that's it, guys. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you guys. I'll be blasting my list with this video if you guys want to check it out. If you're interested in what happened at this event and what we talked about, I'll see you guys on the next one.